Timeless by Taylor Swift. Today I'm delving back into the Speak Now album, or at least Taylor's version, and Timeless is one of the tracks from The Vault on that re-recorded album. The original version of Speak Now dates back to 2010, and this version was re-recorded in 2021, I think that's right. Now this is basically a fairly soppy love song. Okay, I know that. It's a very romantic song. It's not aimed at any particular individual or any particular relationship. This is about the concept of a relationship and the idea that it is timeless. So this is not a new idea. It's been explored in fiction, in movies, and no doubt in songs also before this. But I think, as usual, Taylor has a very unique take on this in the way that she tells the story. And it is very much about telling a story once again. At the end of this video, I'll provide a little bit of context for this song. I'll be using the lyric video from 2021, which features both of Taylor's sets of grandparents, and particularly you'll see here Marjorie and Robert, but both sets of grandparents are there. So here it is, Timeless by Taylor Swift. That, of course, is Marjorie.
Down the block there's an antique shop, and something in my head said stop, so I walked in. On the counter was a cardboard box, and the sign said photos, 25 cents each.
So right away you have that kind of country feel to the music, but also she's setting this scene.
Down the block there's an antique shop, and something in my head said stop, so I walked in. On the counter was a cardboard box, and the sign said photos, 25 cents each. Black and white, saw a 30s bride and two lovers laughing on the porch of their first house. The kind of love that you only find once in a lifetime, the kind you don't put down. And that's when I called you, and it's so hard to explain, but in those photos I saw us instead. And somehow I know that you and I would have found each other. In another life you still would have turned my head, even.
So obviously this is a very romantic view of relationships, the sense that they were always meant to be, that they were destined to be together, that no matter when they'd lived, they would have found their way together. There's a book by Richard Bach, who wrote Jonathan Livingston Seagull. He wrote a book called Bridge Across Forever, which tells a similar story of a couple who always came together in the multiple lives that they led.
Instead. And somehow I know that you and I would have found each other. In another life you still would have turned my head, even if we'd met on a crowded street in 1944, and you were headed off to fight in the war. You still would have been mine, we would have been timeless. I would have read your love letters every single night and prayed to God you'd be coming home alright, and you would have been fine, we would have been timeless. 'Cause I believe that we were supposed to find this, so even in a different life you still would have been mine, we would have been timeless. I had to smile when it caught my eye. There was one of a teenage couple in the driveway, holding hands on the way to a dance, and the date on the back said 1958.
I think this is Taylor's mum, Andrea. One thing I like about the way she writes this song is that She shows us one scene which is 1944, but now she's jumping forward to 1958, and I think the fact that she shows her mother here is significant, as I'll suggest later at the end of the video.
I had to smile when it caught my eye. There was one of a teenage couple in the driveway, holding hands on the way to a dance, and the date on the back said 1958, which brought me back to the first time I saw you. Time stood still like something in this old shop. I thought about it as I started looking round at these precious things that time forgot. That's when I came upon a book covered in cobwebs, story of a romance torn apart by fate. Hundreds of years ago they fell in love like we did, and I'd die for you in the same way. If I first saw your face in the 1500s off in a foreign land.
So now we jump back to the 1500s. I don't have to say how hopelessly romantic the song is, but I do love the way she jumps across the timeline like this. Also, really in this song, she really is just telling the story in a very straightforward way. It's very much a narrative song.
And I'd die for you in the same way. If I first saw your face in the 1500s off in a foreign land, and I was forced to marry another man, you still would have been mine. We would have been timeless. I would have read your love letters every single night and run away and left it all behind. You still would have been mine. We would have been timeless. 'Cause I believe that we were supposed to find this. So even in a different life, you still would have been mine. We would have been timeless. Time breaks down your mind and body. Don't you let it touch your soul. It was like an age-old classic. The first time that you saw me, the story started when you said hello. In a crowded room a few short years ago, and sometimes there's no proof, you just know you're always gonna be mine. We're gonna be. I'm gonna love you when our hair is turning gray. We'll have a cardboard box of photos of the life we've made, and you'll say, oh my, we really were timeless. I'm gonna be timeless, timeless. You still would have been mine. We would have been, even if we'd met on a crowded street in 1944. You still would have been mine. You would have been. Down the block there's an antique shop, and something in my head said stop, so I walked in.
And as she so often does, Taylor returns to the opening lines of the song at the very end to kind of frame the whole song. Now, a very romantic, probably very naive view of relationships. Look, I'm a 67-year-old man who's been married twice and been in one even longer relationship than that. I have no illusions about romantic love, and I think that the illusions of romantic love are in fact one of the things that cause so many problems in relationships, that no relationship can ever match up to these kinds of expectations. But let's put this song in context here. Speak Now came out in 2010. Taylor would have written this song when she was 19, 20 years old. recorded it when she was 20 years old. The Speak Now tour went from February 2011 to March 2012. Her mother Andrea toured with her on this tour. Taylor's parents, Andrea and Scott, got divorced in that year, in 2011. It was kept quiet so that it didn't affect Taylor's career. There'd been trouble in the relationship for several years before that. So at the time that Taylor is writing and recording this song, she's very aware that the fairy tale was not happening for her parents. So I suppose it's not surprising then that she cast a glance back over her shoulder towards earlier times, to the times of her grandparents and even to their parents. At that time in her life, I think Taylor was still trying to cling on to the idea of the fairy tale romance. Maybe she still is, I don't know. But at the time when the song was written and recorded, and at the time when she was touring, her parents' marriage was falling apart. So I think that's worth bearing in mind when you're listening to a song like this. As for the song itself, it's beautifully constructed. It evokes a strong sense of nostalgia. She goes back in time to 1958. She goes back in time to 1944. She goes back in time to the 1500s to reference an illicit relationship of some kind when two people were in love but they couldn't be together. For some reason that reminds me of the story of Abelard and Eloise, who were married in secret and had a son together but ended up taking monastic oaths instead of living together. This was back in the 13th century, I think. The story she's telling of the 1500s reminds me of that kind of classic romantic tale. So she has a long tradition to draw upon in telling this story of a timeless love. It's not as if this is something that Taylor created. It's not as if it's something that other people are not still writing about and singing about and hoping for. I do think perhaps for Taylor, as for many other people today, this has been something of an obstacle in being able to establish an authentic relationship that's not based on these idealistic dreams. Anyway, that's Timeless from Speak Now from The Vault. I hope you enjoyed it and my little chat about it.